Broadcasting live and around the world. From Cabana One, the only podcast that's all ball bearings. Your ultimate source for everything Fletch.
Moon River. Whew. Thank you, Doc. You ever serve time?
Laker Jim and his beat reporters will stop at nothing to make sure Fletch lives forever. They don't shower much. This is Fletchcast.
Fletch fans, welcome to episode 6 of Fletchcast. I'm your host, Laker Jim, and with me are two guys that have lost all their humanitarian awards, Jake and Bob.
Unintentionally.
Welcome, guys.
Oh, that made me laugh. I love that one.
All right, boys, we have a busy show today. We got a lot of things going on, a lot of things to talk about, Fletch. A lot of Fletch things to talk about. So why don't we jump right to the records room?
Hey, Dr. Rosen.
How's the records room?
Dr. Rosenstein to oncology.
The Records Room. This week's Fletchcast character spotlight is
Chief Carlin.
Dr. Rosenbaum to neurology.
B1 access granted. Welcome, Dr. Rosen.
So this week's Records Room character spotlight is Chief Carlin.
You're serious?
Ask anybody.
Guys, the Chief. First thoughts when you think of the Chief.
Well, he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy, that's for sure. He's not the shining example of law and order.
Gonna bust the chief.
We're going to bust the Chief today. So this is an interesting character because as the very first villain of Fletch, which is the Chief of Police, he's got a lot of layers to peel, to be perfectly honest. He's the villain of the movie. He's a villain of the book. Now, before we get into this crazy character and go through the similarities and differences, let's start with the very basic one that's right on the surface. Now, in the movie, we know he's Chief Carlin with a K. We even know his name is Jerry from a line that Alan Stanwyk says.
Jesus, Jerry, come on now. You're going to have to trust me.
Chief Jerry Carlin.
But in the book, he's Chief Cummings with a C. Chief Graham Cummings. And to add a little extra twist into this difference, in the script, his name is Chief Graham Cummings. How about that?
Ooh, that is something I did not know.
At what point does he become?
So the name's Karlin with a K, right?
Well, Joe Don is obviously a legendary actor. You know his stature and look and everything.
He's walking tall.
He definitely is. But the character in the book is also tall. He's described as tall with heavy shoulders. Now, the Chief is close to retirement in the book. That we know. So that sort of makes sense as to why he's making a big push for, as much drug money as he can get before he retires.
In the book, too, he's actually has some type of a friendly relationship with John Collins, too, that's never mentioned. Well, I guess it would be Stanton Boyd in the movie. But, John Collins in the book, actually, when he's having lunch at the racket club with Fletch and Joan, mentions about Chief Cummings.
In the script, one of the side notes describes him as looks like a modern executive. So he doesn't have that 80s police chief look. He looks more like a buttoned up executive, probably more like a Stanwyk type look to him.
I mean, wouldn't you have to look like an executive if you want to rub elbows with Tommy Lasorda?
That's true. While you brought that up, I don't know if you've ever noticed, there's a wall of celebrity pictures of him with different people. One of them is him with Burt Reynolds, who was considered for the role of Fletch.
That's a good observation. I never noticed that. Yeah.
I didn't see that. That's just a little Easter egg. I guess we'll have to go back and look for that one.
Look closely. The photoshopped heads of Joe Don Baker on those things are painful to look at. His face is like much lighter than the body it's on and the rest of the photo. I'm not sure. And especially black and white. Being a Photoshop guy, black and white, you can cover so much tone difference. You're not matching color. I don't see how they missed the boat with black and white photos that badly. It actually looks like a cut and paste, literally a
Well,
cut and
that's what
paste
I was
job.
thinking. I wonder if they had a picture of Joe Don, cut out his head, stuck it on a picture of whoever was with like Tommy or Bert, and then like Xeroxed it, put it in the frame, you know?
And how else would you expect them to do Photoshop in 1985?
It's so sloppy that the picture of Burt Reynolds, I believe, is from one of the movies. He's like in his, he's in that like classic bandit car. Yeah, and Joe Don Baker's like leaning in the window.
Bob, look and see if Joe Don and Bert ever did a movie together.
I will. Now here's the thing. While I'm doing that, I have a question for you guys. Have you ever seen a Joe Don Baker movie where he's not playing a cop of some sort?
I mean, I know he did the Walking Tall movies, right? Is that what I'm pretty sure he did like a couple of those back in the 70s. But he was a cop there. Yeah.
His niche is to play a cop, whether corrupt or not, doesn't matter.
Thank God, the police.
I always think of Joe Don Baker. I always think of the movie Mitchell, which I don't know that movie for the movie itself. I know it because Mystery Science Theater 3000 absolutely destroyed Joe Don Baker. I know most people know what I'm talking about in terms of what Mystery Science Theater 3000 is. But when you talk about somebody just getting their entire career and character destroyed in 90 minutes, man, it's hilarious to watch. They crushed that guy.
What is his character in Mitchell? Who does he play?
So in Mitchell, he's playing a cop as well.
That's a stretch.
Oh, wait, it's Mitchell.
Oh, the Martha Mitchell story.
Joe Don Baker is an action film called Mittens?
Joe Don Baker is Mittens. He's a cop.
DP at 1020 Mapleton Drive. Investigate Landon.
Our hero, ladies and gentlemen, right there.
Just 5 more minutes.
You got any moist towelettes, rags, toilet paper or something? You got a sofa I could stretch out on for a little while?
There's a police investigation going on here.
Oh, there is? I thought there was just a big slob walking around my house.
He's kind of but he's playing a very easy cop to make fun of for how sloppy and lazy he is. He's the opening scene of the movie is him in the backseat of a car, clearly hungover, going to a caller. And that's the whole movie is just him being drunk and kind of doofy and unhappy with his assignments. And you gotta, if you've never seen it, even if you're not a fan of Joe Don Baker, you have to be a fan of just somebody getting their ass handed to them and that's what these guys do. They make fun of him in a way that has you laughing out loud. And in fact, he actually threatened the guys that made that show in real life. A lot of hostility. I think there was a lawsuit as well. A lot of hostility of Joe Don. He didn't take the jokes too lightly. He took them to heart and was not happy.
Now I can see why they cast him, because he's so intimidating,
Well, the funny thing is if you think about the scene, you think about him as the chief, there's an onslaught of gay jokes towards Joe Don Baker from the get-go of the Fletch scene.
Yeah, I hear he's mellowed out a lot since he came out of the closet.
You better take his picture while he still has a face.
Why are you doing this, Mr. Fletch? I like men. I like to be manhandled. I like you.
The only Joe Don Baker movie I see with Burt Reynolds is the really terrible Dukes of Hazzard movie that came out with Johnny Knoxville.
Oh, okay.
Pretty sure Joe Don Baker plays I don't know if it's the mayor or the governor. I don't know what he's playing in that movie, but yeah, that's the only one. But
Eastbound and Down.
How could you call him? What's the matter with you?
Fletch, I'm sorry.
Do you have any idea how close to death I came?
Yeah, it's awful.
In the book, Clara Snow is the one. We've talked about Clara Snow in the past being that just thorn in Fletch's side. She's the stupid one that calls. I don't even think is she calling to fact check the story, or is she called for some other reason? I can't remember.
No, I think that was it. Just to, I think, allow the police to know what Fletch has discovered, and that tips off the police and Chief Cummings in the book that someone is trying to figure out what's going on. And we all know that he's the runner, the drug runner in the book and the movie. So he wants to intimidate Fletch. And he actually tells them, I believe it's Chief Cummings says, maybe get out of town or something like that. I don't know if it's him or not, but And I immediately think of the song.
I love when I find references like that in the book that, made it into the movie. And that goes back to like what we always talk about. It's like there are so many small details that were obviously plucked from the book and placed. It might be Confess Fletch, or I think it's in the 74 Fletch book. He references as somebody being cute as a button, but it's not, it's not the Stanwyk parent scene. So they pulled the cute as a button line, placed it in the movie in a different spot. So there were so many of that. So why the Chief Cummings, Carlin switch, and different things, like you keep the name Creasy,
Yes.
with such a minor character, you keep that very odd name for the character in the movie, but yet other characters that you would think you would keep continuity through,
Well, like John Collins. I mean, why?
Right.
I mean, that's a huge one. I mean, that's a huge character in the book.
I know in the Mitchell movie, this is really not the answer, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I know in the Mitchell movie, one of the antagonists in that movie, his name is J. Arthur Cummings. It's just so strange that so often these names get changed. Who knows why?
Jake, you mentioned that there's a disparity between the drug running. Bob, in the book, the chief is the one that's going to get the drugs directly.
Yes.
Stanwyk is not involved in the South America run.
All right.
Fletch finds out, or somebody finds out, that the chief has made quite a few runs to Mexico.
Yeah, he has a big car with the police bubble on top that they refer to a lot.
That's right.
That's the car that he drives back and forth across Mexico.
Right.
And
So
once Fletch hears that,
police bubble meaning like the light, like the blue and red light?
yes, that's on the roof. And I think that...
He's not flying the drugs. He's driving the drugs?
Yes.
Wow.
Chief Cummings is literally, going back and forth from Mexico, bringing the drugs in himself.
Right. So Stanwyk is not involved in that operation. And we'll get to later in the story, like the very ending of...
Hang on a minute. Hang on. You said he's driving the drugs to Mexico. I thought that in the movie, he's flying the drugs to South America and Rio.
Stanwyk is.
Stanwyk.
Yeah.
Yes.
I get that Stanwyk is, but so the drugs aren't actually going to South America anymore. They're going to Mexico now? Totally different country.
Mm-hmm.
Bob, I think your assignment is to read the original Fletch.
I don't know how.
Between now and the end of the year. I'll give you till Christmas. Do a chapter a night. You'll be done before you know it.
How about from now to spring 2023?
Or do the audiobook.
Listen, the South America, Mexico, the drugs are, they're just as good. Yeah, drugs are drugs.
Drugs are drugs.
Hang on. It is a major difference, though. I mean, you're talking about, if he was flying them to England, you're talking about a totally different country. You're talking about a totally different way of getting them there. It's a major difference.
I think you're dealing with a millionaire person that has the access to a private plane, and then maybe the chief
is a pilot.
And is a pilot. That's a really good point. And the chief not having that exact access to fly to South America. So,
yeah.
And plus, that just ties the script together nicely,
right?
In a nice little package by the ending. That there is that connection.
I just find it kind of surprising that they changed so much.
Yeah,
but again, it ties in because at the end, Fletch is in Rio, not Mexico, so using those tickets. So it all works out. It definitely all works out.
The script mentions an interesting little side fact in the notes that when Fletch enters his office, he has a painting from a French artist, Henri Matisse.
You decorate this place yourself, or did Mrs. Chief of Police help out?
I can only assume that nugget of script note is just to imply maybe that he has money, maybe?
In the book, he noticed when Fletch first enters Stanwyk's office, too, he noticed there's a describer that he had art, but none of it was really good. He wasn't impressed. It was just like, okay. And, throughout the books, Fletch is always working on this project that he wants to write this book about this American Western paint. He painted Western scenes. And throughout all the books, they ask Fletch what he's doing. And he's still working on this book about this Western painter.
I mentioned that in the script, once Fletch agrees he's not going to write the story, and he lets him out of jail. There's a scene where they go out into the hallway of the precinct, and Chief Carlin is really, making a big scene of shaking his hand and saying thanks for coming. And Fletch says, next time, no tongue. So even in the script, so they went heavy,
heavy with the homophobia.
Trying to chop down Chief Carlin's manhood. He even insults his goons.
Yeah, why don't you guys go down to the gym and pump each other?
And pump each other, yeah. If I remember, one of the police officers was played by the dad on Fresh Prince.
Uncle Phil.
Uncle Phil. Yeah, Uncle Phil. That's right. Uncle Phil.
Looks like heroin, Gene.
Not so recently deceased, but recently deceased actor James Avery.
James Avery. Yeah. Joe Don's still with us. We should try to get him on the podcast. He's in his 80s, but he's still around.
85 years old now. Now, listen, I also want to say, I know I typecasted Joe Don at the beginning of this conversation, saying he always plays a cop, even though as I look at his body of work, even Cape Fear, he's playing a cop, everything else, but he does play another role in a lot of movies, and I should give him credit for that. That role's hillbilly. He plays a hillbilly so well because he overdoes it so badly, and he does it again in Joe Dirt, where he plays Joe Dirt's dad. So, not just a cop, also. White trash.
White trash hick. Okay, so we mentioned maybe Mrs. Chief of Police might have decorated the office, but he's got a bunch of framed celebrity pictures, and most famously one of Tommy Lasorda.
Of course.
Hey, you and Tommy Lasorda. I hate Tommy Lasorda.
Right.
In the script, he says, "Oh, you and Tommy Lasorda," takes the frame off the wall and frisbees it across the room. So a little discrepancy. Movie in the script.
Does he throw it at Chief Cummings in this?
Doesn't say. It just says he flings it across the room and it shattered. And too, so then that lands Fletch in the jail cell.
Yeah.
So obviously, as we all remember,
can't keep me here, Chief.
Maybe I'm not going to keep you in here. Maybe I'm going to blow your brains out.
Well, no, I'm no lawyer, but I do believe that's a violation of my rights.
Chief's going to shoot Fletch, and then cover it up by.
After I shoot you, I stick myself in the arm with this knife. Then I place the knife in your dead hand. Self-defense. We don't do it much anymore, but boy, back in the old days.
They don't really do that nowadays.
Oh, not so much, but
back in the day.
Ask anybody.
Can I ask anybody now? How about, can I call my mom, tell her how much I love her?
I guess not.
Can I ask anyone now?
Joe Don is so stunned by that question. He looks down the corridor and is just sort of confused by
it. Do you think there is a world where he actually would have killed him? Or do you think that was just a bully intimidation tactic until he would have just kept him there until he agreed?
Bully tactic?
I think so. I think that he had no intention of doing it. It probably works on 99% of the time. Anybody has a gun in their face.
I mean, the guy had me alone in a cell with a gun in my head and a knife in his hand. He threatened to kill me, Frank.
If he was going to kill him, he wasn't going to do it there. It was kind of like, I'm going to let you go this time, just so you know, as soon as you step out of here, my people are on you. You're going to be a dead man in a couple days, And then I believe he would have killed him outside of the actual precinct, but not inside. That's just my opinion.
Dipshit. You go back to that goddamn beast and you won't live to regret it.
When the chief kills Alan, he is the fastest gone. I mean, it's instant.
Joe Don did a lot of Westerns in the 60s too, so he's got a lot of practice.
He definitely calls on his Western experience to take out Alan in no time.
And one shot, too.
You're going to land my butt on the front page while you're basking in the sun.
With your money.
He has 3 opportunities to kill Fletch, and he takes so long to shoot him.
Well, he said the second one was going to be a lot of fun, so he wanted to savor it.
But he should have just shot him.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
He waits way too long. He waits there when the gun gets knocked out of his hands. Then he gets on top of him, gets the gun back.
He has that
and still doesn't shoot him
to Fletch's head for a solid 6 elephants, and then he takes the tennis racket. By the way, I'm sorry, but a tennis racket into the neck shoulder area, I don't think that's knocking anybody out. But it's a movie.
Maybe it's a pressure point. We should have an acupuncturist on or something like that and ask them
Maybe Gail knew. Maybe she knew. Maybe she knew exactly where to hit a guy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Well, she has racket experience.
She does.
I mean, that's pretty much how she spends her days.
You're right. You know, when you're right, you're right.
I mean, California Racket Club.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's my club. So
he survives a fireball explosion to the face, but a tennis racket to the shoulder and neck takes him out.
He's had a lot of experience. He's had a lot of resistance to heat experiences, so he's ready for that. He's not ready for a tennis racket. Everybody knows that.
In the movie, the chief says to Alan that he'd given him $800,000 for the latest drug run. $800,000 is a lot of money,
especially $1985.
Yeah,
that's insane, and that's one run. You know, so
right. That's what I mean.
You know, when you factor in the weight of a plane, and how much it's allowed to carry and so on. I don't know how much heroin weighs, but Jesus, that plane had to be packed with heroin. You know, like it's just insane to think, you know, logistically, like how it all happened, and just one person flying, because I don't think Alan had anybody along with him for the ride. So, yeah, I could see how their $800,000 sounds about right.
There's nothing, though, in the script that was left out about how they had a connection, right?
In the book or the movie?
There was nothing. Well, I know in the book, but in the movie, in the script, how that Alan and
like
Chief know each other. How did they connect?
Right. Yeah, they touch on it
to start this partnership in business.
They touch on their relationship in for the first time with the microfiche with Larry and Fletch, and they're at some benefit.
Oh, that's right. You're right. But they're at a benefit.
Jake, you are correct. Yeah. You are correct. They never really talk about how this operation began and how they met and so on and so forth. You know, maybe Jim Swarthout had something to do with it. He seems shady.
I can see it in the book because, again, Chief Cummings in the book had a relationship with John Collins, and Alan is his son-in-law. So then I could see a connection there, but none was really evident in the movie.
This is why I maintain we need a Fletch fan fiction universe where we talk about all these relationships forming and so on and so forth. I'm willing to write it.
Jake, you mentioned my brother-in-law Jeff just likes me.
Shout out to Jeff.
You mentioned earlier that the chief's car was very distinctive, the car he drove. And at some point, Bob, in the book, Fletch blows the whistle on the chief and is waiting for him to be brought in and arrested.
Okay.
While he's on his way to Stanwyk's house, he notices that the chief is following him. Right, Jake?
Yep.
And is that when he calls his buddy?
Yeah, he calls Alston Chambers. Yeah, the DA, his friend that he was in the service with. And he's like, yeah, he's still around.
I guess Fletch loses him, right? At some point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then we know what happens in the end.
Right.
And there is a difference. We'll talk about this later between how it ends in the movie and the book.
Do you want to cover that more in the book chapter?
We can talk about it now if you'd like, because it is part of the character of the book. But in the end, the chief never comes into Alan's office. And remember that Alan is dressed like Fletch.
Right.
So the chief is outside, sees through the window, assumes Alan is Fletch, and uses like a high-power rifle and kills Alan in his office,
right,
or through a window, shoots him.
So the chief snipes him from far away in the
the backyard.
Snipes Alan, assuming that it's Fletch.
All right, I want to get into this. I want to hear how this happens.
So there's no confrontation that there was in the movie.
Sure, no tennis racket to the neck.
No, nothing like that.
Kind of diminishes Gail's role in the whole thing. I'm not so sure she earned those Rio tickets now.
You know, in the movie, this is slightly off topic, but since we're there, Fletch takes the tickets to Rio, but I don't think he takes the money, it's never really implied that he takes the money, right?
Well, the money had to be evident.
He didn't have the money. He didn't get the money in the movie.
Right.
He did in the book.
Right.
I mean, that's what sustains him through the rest of the book series is that money. But I guess just the airline tickets.
Yeah.
Remember,
In the court ruling, U.S. versus Fishbein, a man subjected to potential incineration while wearing another man's suit is entitled to $10,000 worth of airline tickets. It's an obscure ruling, but very important one to me.
Which probably the movie ends the way Gregory McDonald probably wish he would have ended the book. Maybe him just taking the tickets to Rio instead of the money.
Yeah. But it's nice, though, because in future books, he's not just, well, in a couple of the books, he's still in LA, a reporter. But it's nice that with the money, he's in new places doing different things, different experiences.
Well, I think what we take away from this is that the Chief was perfectly casted with Joe Don Baker. You know, I made a lot of jokes about him, but I mean, that is the role he's born to play. I think we can all agree on that. And, you know, not seen it a lot, but seen enough in the movie. So, you know, his impact. And I think that it all ties together beautifully at the end, you know, justice is served. Corrupt cop goes to jail. Stanwyk dead. Fletch in his lady, not Larry, but his Fletch and Gale in Rio. Wonderful ending.
For the Chief's whole operation to be in jeopardy, he's pretty calm during the whole thing, right?
Oh, that's arrogance. You know?
I mean, even when he's questioning Fletch and he's asking him his name, and he clearly knows Fletch is giving him a fake name.
So, what's your name?
Fletch.
Full name?
Fletch F. Fletch.
I see. And what do you do for a living, Mr. Fletch?
I'm a shepherd.
It's interesting in the book, too, when he's having the discussion and Chief asks him in the movie, you know, what's his name? And he goes, Fletch. And he says, Fletch F. Fletch. And in the book, he says, Fletch, Fletch, Fletch. So it's close.
Yeah. I think Fletch F. Fletch works funnier.
Yeah.
Again, like I said before, Fletch probably knows he's in hot water. He knows the Chief probably already has all the answers to the questions he's asking. So what's the point of giving him the satisfaction?
When Fletch mentions he's going to shift his attention to another story revolving around off-track betting in the Himalayas.
Smaller story, but I know you've been following it.
There's a line in the script where he says, he tells him that, and then he says, "You don't think it's mafia, do you?" Which would have been a funny Chevy delivery.
That would have been good.
You know, we also mentioned, too, in an earlier podcast that whole Tommy Lasorda picture is based on a deleted scene that we've never seen, that we still pray that one of these days we will be able to, because up until now we've just seen stills.
So let me tell you what we do know about that Tommy Lasorda scene. So obviously the joke plays okay without the knowledge of why Fletch hates Tommy Lasorda. But if you know a little of the backstory of the cutscene that Jake just mentioned, is Fletch has another dream sequence, just like he had with the Lakers, where he's pitching for the Dodgers. And he's pitching in the World Series, and Tommy Lasorda comes out, and he's going to pull Fletch from the game. And they get in a huge skirmish where they're rolling around on the ground fighting. And weirdly enough, in Fletch's dream, the Dodgers are playing against a team of Yankees, but they're all little people. The entire Yankee team is little people that they're playing up against. And I believe I've read somewhere that Fletch is pitching to the little person at bat. Obviously, his strike zone is in a lot different place than a normal person's strike zone. So Fletch can't get it over the opponent's strike zone, and that's why Tommy comes to pull him from the game.
I could see why that scene was deleted, but it's a real shame that none of these scenes have ever seen the light of day.
I will be honest, that sounds bizarre and very out of place with the whole tone. I mean, the Lakers scene works perfectly. It's great. But that seems a little extreme to me, the whole little person.
Well, you're also working another nap into the movie.
Or maybe he's just dozing off in his Provo hotel.
If you follow us on Instagram, our handle is @IamFletchcast. Scroll down to one of the first posts I created when I first set up the account. I have a lot of pictures of the scenes in there. Originally, way back on the website, I did unearth, and I'm proud to say I was the first to ever unearth that photo of him and Tommy Lasorda on the mound. But since then, a lot of other photos have kind of come out. I just hope the interest in this cut scene helps them dig it out one day. They're most recently, and I'm not 100% sure, and I just saw this on social media, but a new version of Fletch just came out on DVD in another country because there's a new cover. Fletch has the IDs, but it's like an aerial shot of it. He's kind of looking up and holding the IDs up, and he's standing on a giant target. So they continue to put versions of this movie out, and yet we never got anything but that Jane Doe documentary that was okay, but it should have been more. There should have been a jam-packed everything on one edition of Fletch. If you're going to call something the Jane Doe edition, load it up with everything you got.
And we talked about this a while ago offline when we were getting ready for this one. But we're hoping that maybe with the new movie that Universal will jump on board the promotion of it and unearth some of these scenes. And maybe we will see a new edition with these scenes, because we would assume they exist. I'm not sure. Maybe the stills are the only things that's left.
Sadly, the people that can tell the stories of these scenes are starting to go too. You know what I mean? So it's like, we don't have Michael Ritchie anymore to tell this story. And, eventually, as the years go on, we're going to lose more and more people that have any knowledge of this scene.
Now, you mentioned that there was additional scenes that go along with the Laker scene, and there's obviously this whole Dodger scene. There was also a hockey scene as well that got deleted.
There was a cut hockey scene. There's in the promotional photos for the movie. Well, obviously the hockey alias shows up on the cover.
Gordy something or other, Gordy LaForge or something.
Yeah, he has some kind of a mishmash name of hockey players.
Yeah, the IDs.
He's in the Kings uniform. Now, back then, the Kings wore a purple and yellow, that kind of a Laker color uniforms. They weren't the black and silver that they became in the 80s with Gretzky. But at that time, and there's a few scenes. Fletch is a goalie. He's wearing the goalie mask, which he also wears in Christmas Vacation. He's wearing an all yellow hockey mask, goalie mask, and he's walking down the street of LA in full hockey gear, including the skates and the stick. Now the shot has him outside the LA Times, so that's all we know about that. And I wonder if maybe they use the LA Times as the setting of Fletch's newsroom, maybe maybe they shot it outside the LA Times, and it's something they would have removed or changed at some point to make it the News Tribune. But
maybe.
Then there's another scene where Fletch is at his desk, and Larry and Frank are helping him get his gear off. So that's not a dream sequence. That was something legit, I think.
Well, maybe he was going to the LA Times to start a hockey fight with a rival reporter. And then what we see is the aftermath of after the fight.
And there's nothing in the script.
Nothing in the script. No,
that is odd.
So odd.
Come on, Universal. We need you to release this stuff for our sake and for Fletch fans' sake. It's been too long.
The world of DVDs are dying. I mean, if they barely have a heartbeat. If you want any of us to buy another Fletch DVD, you have to put this on it. There's no way anyone is buying another version of Fletch with just the movie on it. It would be a damn crime.
Looking at you, Matola, for your Confess Fletch DVD. You got to work out a deal with Universal.
Greg, we want cut stuff. Whatever winds up on the cutting room floor, hang on to that for the DVD. We don't want to have having this conversation about Confess Fletch in 25 years. But anyway, so that I think sums up the Chief Carlin Records Room for this week.
Yeah, big step in the career of George Carlin to step out of his comfort zone and play a police chief.
No, not George Carlin.
Chief Carlin. Sorry, let me take two. That big step, big step for Joe Don Baker to step out of his comfort zone and play a police chief.
Like, George Carlin in the role.
Wait a minute. Okay, off on a tangent. George Carlin might have been a good Frank.
Oh, yes.
Or maybe even a good Fat Sam.
Sam. Yeah, I was thinking Fat Sam would have been great. Oh, Fantastic that Sam. They'll get here when they get here.
Fletch,
man.
listen, you can't run the ad and not run the story. That would have been great. Can you imagine him delivering that?
Fantastic.
By the way, this is a total tangent, but I love Fletch's look to Frank when he's explaining that to him, and he goes, "What? Really?"
The eyebrow up.
Chevy kills that.
Why not? He goes, he's like, really? Why not? And he's like, shit, Frank. that shot was on the top banner of the website in the news section. It was Chevy like with the eyebrow up. And I actually had him looking at Kevin Smith in that scene.
Well, I think we all had that look to Kevin Smith at one time or another. Let's go, dude.
I wonder if he would have possibly used Carlin, because Carlin became kind of a Kevin Smith guy at that point.
Yeah, he became a staple. He played
that's a good point.
The Cardinal and Dogma, and he played the Hitchhiker and what was it, Jane Silent Bob Strike Back?
He played the Ben Affleck's dad in Jersey Girl.
He was good in that.
Yeah,
he was good.
Yeah, he was really good. So he, maybe Kevin would have worked Carlin in. That would have been an interesting thing to see.
Another question: if we get Kevin on too, maybe we can ask. Hey, did you have an idea of casting?
Yeah, who
besides Fletch?
Yeah, who are you casting?
That's a good point, because Jay Moore came up. Jay Moore was going to be in it, but he wasn't going to be Fletch. I wonder if he was going to be Alston Chambers.
Possible, because they were about the same age, and Alston's in Fletch 1. Yeah. But I think Carlin would have been a great Frank, because you could definitely see him with glasses on, with the watery eyes that they describe in the book. That would have been perfect.
He would have been perfect to do that shaky hand coffee cup scene, or a shaky coffee pot scene where he's losing it. Fletch is pissing him off. I can picture that scene perfectly.
I love Frank. I can't wait till we do Frank in the record room. Now, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but we're going to be back with a brand new segment that you guys are going to love. I can't wait to debut it after this.
Are you tired of having your shoes or even bare feet bleached off because you stepped in dangerous chemicals lingering on your own property? Who knows how they got there? Hi, I'm Headley Dan Duke, head honcho of Bly Biochemical Disposal and Reassignment. At Bly, we will pay top dollar to you to dispose of those pesky synthetic anomalies. When it comes to the ethical concerns of doing away with those non-stop precarious and perilous property pests and pesticides, we're right, and you're wrong.
Warning. Core overheating. Nuclear meltdown imminent.
Now, everyone knows that Fletch is a cult film and has a cult following. But there are references to Fletch everywhere, and it's our job to find them in a new segment we call Fletch Pop Culture.
Fletch Pop Culture.
Bob, what do you got for today's Fletch Pop Culture reference?
Well, there's so many. How often are you watching your favorite TV show and you hear a reference and you vaguely remember, and then you realize, oh my God, that's a Fletch reference. Believe it or not, it happens a lot. Now, this first Fletch reference that I like to kind of talk about here comes from a TV show that was huge in the 2000s, TV show called Supernatural.
Not super familiar with the show.
Have heard of it, but never watched it.
Supernatural follows Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki, I believe. They play two brothers, Sam and Dean, and they go on, I guess you would say, I don't want to say ghost hunts because I don't want the Supernatural, fan forum to come and attack me, but they go on to find supernatural beings, whether it's ghosts or werewolves, whatever the case may be.
Oh,
vampires.
yes. Is this like a WB show?
WB show. Yep. Very, very, very long run, this show as well.
I think Jeffrey Dean Morgan played their father, I think, and he somewhat went missing. And I believe the whole point of the show, I could be wrong, is them trying to find him.
Right.
Going through like different, supernatural situations, thinking he may somehow be involved with it, I think.
Yeah.
So Fletch pops up in the show?
Well, here's the deal. You know, it didn't take long for our first Fletch reference. In fact, the pilot episode of season 1, you get our first Fletch reference. One of the brothers, Dean, is being interrogated by the police. They ask him his name, and in true Fletch form, the name he gives is Ted Nugent.
Oh man, that's really good.
So, not taking any shit from the police in true Fletch form, he gives the name Ted Nugent. James, do you have a clip of the pilot episode where we're talking about what we're talking about?
I do.
Let's hear that clip.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
So you want to give us your real name?
I told you, it's Nugent. Ted Nugent.
I'm not sure you realize just how much trouble you're in here.
You talking like misdemeanor kind of trouble or squeal like a pig trouble?
Yeah.
That's hard to deny that's a Fletch reference. I mean, just the way he delivers to Ted Nugent.
That's not the last time either.
It's not.
No. We go on a few seasons later. There's an episode where once again, Sam and Dean, the brothers, are asked to give their name. Let's play that clip.
Can I help you? Hi, are you the new owner? Yeah. You guys are?
This is Mr. Stanwyk, Mr. Babar, County Code Enforcement.
We had the building inspected last week. Is there a problem?
Asbestos in the walls, a gas leak. Yeah, I'd say we got a problem.
That's obvious.
Wow, and Stanwyk too. That's awesome.
And they even go.
No, obviously right. So that's clearly a Fletch reference. There's no denying that.
They even go as far as to say that they don't have any elephant books. So that's really something special, for us Fletch fans to see something like that, to see those names referenced, really phenomenal. And you think that it ends there, but there are so many references to the Fletch movie. We're talking how many years later, and people are still talking about it. In this case, it was 20 years later because the show started in 2005. But I mean, so many Fletch references are constantly used, and I hope we can explore more and more than weeks to weeks here, because there are a lot.
I mean, clearly the writer must have been a huge Fletch fan. If the Fletch references span the course of many seasons, then I would imagine the creator or writer is a huge Fletch fan, which is awesome to hear.
Without a doubt, yeah, and they're not the only ones. The TV shows that have referenced Fletch, you're going to see as we go on here. There are so many of them. It's not a movie that is easily forgotten. I know a lot of movies often get mentioned, but not in this way where people are taking the actual lines from the movie and using it themselves. And we're going to get into another one next week that I think you're all going to enjoy.
Wow, you see? So I'm definitely going to have to check out that series. Bob, great work. We're going to hear from Bob on Fletch Pop Culture every week. Good job. Start working on your next one.
Fletch Pop Culture.
And now, Literary Fletch.
Fletch, F. Fletch.
Examining the word of Gregory MacDonald. Take it away, Jake.
Jake, where are we with Fletch 1974?
Thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate that. As we left our hero in chapter 6, Fletch was talking to Jack Carradine, getting some backstory information on Stanwyk. And as we find our hero in chapter 7, he's actually sitting at the office of Amelia Shercliffe, who is the society editor at the paper. And we talk about in this chapter, first, how Amelia loves Fletch and his look. So that's one thing that she compliments us on. She says he looks, quote, downtown. Maybe that's an early mid-70s reference. I guess when you look good, you look downtown.
Yeah, like uptown girl, downtown guy,
Talks about Stanwyk a little bit. So again, this is another chapter that's heavy into research, finding out more about the Stanwyks. She says that the Stanwyks are beautiful and dull. Talks a little bit about John Collins, talks about Alan's responsibilities within the company of Collins Aviation. He questions her about what would happen if he were sick. There was some question about how stable the company would be. And the question that Fletch has been asking is,
I'm sorry, not to interrupt you, but who was sick?
If Alan was sick and how the company would react to that.
Okay, right.
And a question that Fletch has had a few times is, why weren't Alan's parents at the wedding?
Right.
So as we roll into chapter 8, we find our hero again on the telephone. In chapter 8, he calls Trans Worlds Airlines to confirm the reservation to Rio for next Friday.
And this is, and Jake, not to interrupt you, but this is sort of what I mentioned early on, is that a lot of this book takes place over the phone. So where Fletch in the movie arrives at the Pan Am desk to find out this information, in the book he calls Pan Am to find out.
Yes. So the flight is actually not Friday morning. It's actually Thursday evening, I believe, around 11 o'clock. So that's when he is supposed to kill Stanwyk that Thursday evening, and then departs the plane at 11 o'clock. So he confirms the reservation, and the reservation is there. So at least he thinks that, maybe he's telling the truth, that he really does want him to kill him. So then the last part of the chapter is hang
on. Okay. Not to interrupt you, Jake, again. Sorry to do that to you. But thinking about the movie itself, the actor who plays the Pan Am service desk clerk, I don't know what her proper title is. Thank God they actually did it face to face, because her reaction to Fletch and all his craziness at the desk is so perfect, where she plays it straight and she does give him the information he needs, and she doesn't question him. She trusts him. But the fact that she plays that role so straight, it would have lost something over the phone. So I'm glad that they decided to get the time in. I don't know if it's actually shot in an airport or shot on the set, but I'm really happy that they actually did it face to face, because that scene is one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie.
He's great.
Stanwyk, you are confirmed on Pan Am Flight 441 to Rio de Janeiro tomorrow evening, 11 p.m., first class.
That's terrific. Thank you.
You reconfirmed this morning.
You bet I did. I'm a bear for detail.
And he's
Mr.
fully
Stanwyk
dressed,
line. Yeah.
He has a suit on, a hat, I think. He's got a suitcase.
Got luggage, yeah.
Yeah, he's got luggage. Why
He's
would
got
you
his
go
fold-outs.
Why would you go to the airport dressed like you're ready to fly when your flight isn't until Thursday evening?
Well, he had to show her the fold-outs that needed all the space, and there's so many great lines. The God Don Don, the Mr. Sin Linden, Morris or Pierre, Provost Spain. That scene is loaded with great lines. So me personally, I'm thrilled that they decided to go away from the phone.
Me.
Right.
Jake, is there humor in the back and forth in the book?
Oh no, it's only like a paragraph.
It's just very,
it's very.
So the book, so the movie actually wins this fight.
Yes. So then the rest of the chapter is him actually calling Marvin Stanwyk in Nonhegan, Pennsylvania. So, and it's actually kind of funny. And there, as we talked about a little earlier in the podcast, there are some things that are pulled directly from the book that are in the movie. So he talks to Marvin Stanwyk. It's in Bucks County. So he calls him. Mm-hmm. And he does use, that's in the movie, Casewell Insurers. And we know that's what he says in the movie.
I'm Harry S. Truman from Casewell Insurance Underwriters.
Yep.
Right.
And and he says, sub-insurers of the subsidy carriers of a partial policy listed by Alan Stanwyk, who is your son. So there is a little bit of that in the movie too.
Yeah. So a little confusion for me. He's taken Marvin Stanwyk and his lovely trophy wife. They're taken out of Utah and they're put into Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Yes.
I wonder why that changed.
Do they make any mention of Velma?
It just says, I don't think there's any talk. There's any reference to Velma in this chapter. No, there isn't.
So is there a reason why they're out of Utah and they're in Pennsylvania now?
Maybe access. Maybe it seems like maybe for the movie it would be easier to go to Provo, all compared to all the way across the country. Maybe.
Okay. All right.
And plus, it would be easier for Fletch to investigate a place like Utah, which would be quicker from LA to Provo, maybe compared to all the way across the country.
Now, Marvin is not easily fooled or amused by Fletch's antics.
Yeah, it's great.
Is the character the same in the book where he's sort of like, he's sort of like suspicious as to why Fletch is asking these questions?
He's a definitely on to Fletch and is very short with Fletch. In fact, here I'll read a line because again, this is right from the movie too. Glad to catch you in, sir. So Mr. Stanwyk answers the phone. Mr. Stanwyk says, I'm always in. Just a few questions, sir. Are you and your wife currently alive? That's really close to the movie. Yeah. And he says, last time I looked, you damn fool.
That's Marvin.
And you're both in good health, except for a pain in the ass from answering damn fools on the telephone.
Okay.
So he actually isn't taking any of Fletch's stuff, any of his crap. He goes on a little bit more, talks to Marvin about his son. He then he does discover that Alan does come to Pennsylvania every 6 weeks to see him and his mother.
Okay.
He also goes on to ask them why they weren't at the wedding, because again, that's something that Fletch has been trying to uncover. So the reason is that Alan bought them a trip, and they were supposed to come back right before the wedding. Well, according to Alan, he sends them a telegram while they're on vacation and says, hey, the wedding had to be moved up because of some business reasons. So that's why they weren't at the wedding.
Well played, Alan. Mm-hmm. Well played.
And that's why they had never met the Karlins. And then at the end of the chapter, he does mention to Mr. Stanwyk that he did win a Bronze Star, because he mentioned that Alan actually received a Purple Heart. And Alan actually is a very good athlete. He mentions that he won a Golden Gloves competition.
Oh.
And then he does mention that he did win a Bronze Star. So when he tells Mr. Stanwyk that he won the Bronze Star, his view on Fletch does a complete 180 and totally respects him from there forward. So that's the end of chapter 8.
Question about the book. Is there a lot of references of bigamy in the book, or is that just for the movie?
No, not
bigamy in
knowledge.
Utah.
You mean in Utah?
I'm wondering because
it doesn't take place in Utah. It takes place.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe that's why they changed it in the movie to Utah, so that they can put more bigamy references.
That makes a lot of sense with the two wives.
Yeah,
Yeah, because Utah's sort of known for that stigma. Yeah.
Well, Mormon culture and taking on multiple wives. I think that in the movie that's a kind of a route Fletch was trying to go down and try to expose, and maybe that's why it was changed. That's why I think that's the only logical reason I think of why they changed it from Pennsylvania. But interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jake.
Yeah, and by the way, at the end, remember in the movie his name is Harry S. Truman when he talks to Mr. Stanwyk, but in the book he actually calls himself Sidney James.
Really?
Sidney James.
Sidney James. I like that.
So a preview of chapter 9, Fletch is in the police precinct and he gets something illegal. So stay tuned for chapter 9.
Teaser. Mm-hmm. Teaser. All right, Jake, we'll check in with you next week. See where Fletch goes. Hey, Jake, this is off topic, but I'm listening to Confess Fletch, and somewhere in the book they reference, because the girl he's with in Confess, not Confess, Fletch's Fortune.
Yeah.
The girl he's with is Freddie, another guy's name. And somebody makes a reference to it, says, Fletch, you have all these girls with male names. And I thought that was so freaking crazy that I made reference to that.
And she's in, Freddie's in Fletch and the Man Who, which I'm reading again right now. So she's on the political campaign with Fletch. So she's in it again.
All right.
I mean, I think if Mottola was going to do a trilogy of movies, I would imagine he'll probably do Fortune next, and then maybe finish with And the Man Who. Moxie is just, I don't know how Moxie would transfer to the big screen. It's a little boring. I'm listening to Moxie right now on audiobook when I'm driving, and it's a little slow. I forgot how slow it is, because it basically takes place most in Key West around this house, and it's a little slow.
Yeah, I've given Fletch 2 a couple chances, and man, I'm so bored with it.
And that's a slow one too. Yeah. Fletch 2 is I don't want to say boring, but it's kind of like Karaoke Fletch, where it's just more of a travel log.
So that does it for this week's episode of Fletchcast. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. It really, from the bottom of our hearts, we appreciate every single one of you. Please help us spread the word. Leave us reviews. Leave us comments. Call the voicemail. Anything you do to help support Fletchcast, it'll help us really grow the podcast. And that's what we want to do. We want to spread the word of Fletch. So, for Bob, for Jake, I'm Laker Jim. I implore you, please check the tags on those mattresses. I'm going to go catch the last 10 minutes of Dynasty. See ya.